to very briefly ask one of my students, Ashley Harris, to come to the stage. It's because of Ashley Harris that Jodee Blanco is here. It's because of Ashley that I read the book, and I'd also like to thank senior leadership team for funding today, Neil for approving this event, Neil McCreary, Associate Dean, as well as Jay Robb, who's the media publicist for the school, for Mohawk College, for facilitating the funds. So Ashley Harris.
I'm not really quite sure how I'm supposed to follow that, but I'll try. Thank you so much, Jodee, for coming here today and delivering such a dynamic performance.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
When I thankfully stopped laughing at me off the shelf last summer, I had no idea the impact Jodee and her books were going to make on my life. For one, I couldn't have imagined that I would not only meet the amazing and inspiring woman who wrote the book, but that I would then get up on stage and share my own experiences with you. More importantly, it changed the way I looked at much of my life and how I experienced it. When I started in the Child Youth Work program, I tensed up every time the discussion turned to bullying. I had flashbacks to grade school, and I would leave the room in the midst of an anxiety attack. How could I possibly work with kids who were going through this, or worse, their tormentors? I'd like to share some of those memories with you right now. My first clear memory is the first day of 3rd grade, when at a new school I was told that my entire class hated me because I had stolen their friend's name and there could only be one Ashley Harris at their school. Grade 4 wasn't any better when somebody offered to put duct tape over my mouth during O Canada so that they didn't have to listen to me sing. Again and again, new students at my school would become friends with me just to run when the popular crowd decided that nobody could be friends with them if they were friends with me. Grades 5 and 6 were pretty much the same. I remember a group of 6 older guys pushing me down on the playground, throwing dirt and rocks at me because I walked into one of them. Things like that happened every week. I did everything I could to avoid going outside for recess until eventually I was purposefully failing tests and missing assignments so my teachers would keep me inside as punishment. It wasn't a punishment. I had one friend who would come over after school, and I remember playing Rescue the Princess with him, and I remember the day he kissed me. I remember the day he told me that we couldn't be friends anymore without giving a reason, and I remember the next day at school when someone gleefully told me it was because I wasn't cool enough for him. I remember sitting alone on the playground watching him with the other kids, looking at me and laughing. I remember how crushed I felt, but more so, I remember how horribly alone I felt, and I remember when at 11 years old I cut myself for the first time because crying wasn't enough. My favorite part of school was class speeches, and in the 7th grade, I wanted to be controversial. I was going to talk about drug abuse or teen pregnancy, so I had books about both in my bag, which I left on my desk during lunch while I was out of the room. 5 boys in my class decided to go through that bag, and by the end of the lunch period, my stuff was all over the floor, and the school was buzzing with the news that I was a pregnant junkie. A few days later, when they found out I had told on them, they put rotting lunch meat in my desk with a note, and the message was clear that if they got into trouble, I was dead meat. In the middle of 8th grade, we moved because things were so bad, and for the 5 months I was at my new school, I had friends and I was happy. But when I went to high school, I was alone again. That December, I was climbing a fence when I fell and I shattered my ankle. When I went back to school, it became a game for people to grab my wheelchair and run me across the school away from my class. Somebody took a nut off one of my crutches so it fell apart halfway home from school. Somebody started a rumor that I was faking it, and someone else said that I'd done it on purpose. Everyone said that I just wanted attention. By the end of the school year, I was so alone that I was cutting myself every day. I started a different high school in the fall, and I found myself with friends and even a boyfriend. And as much as it hurt when he dumped me because I wouldn't sleep with him, it was okay because I had friends and I could go and vent to them about it. We would sit in the woods and we would smoke and philosophize. I started dating one of my friend's brothers. And everything was great until I broke up with him. And then my friends turned on me. Threats were made. I wasn't welcome in the woods anymore. So I changed schools again. By the end of the first day, I was in tears. The most popular girl from my elementary school was in 2 of my classes. The mastermind behind so many things that had been done had not become a nobody in high school like so many adults had promised me. If anything, she was twice as popular and just as cruel. One day in biology class, everybody's complaining about the smell of formaldehyde. She picks up a can of air freshener and she's spraying me with it continuously. She declares that I'm the source of the smell, not the fetal pigs we're dissecting. I became obsessed with Columbine and other school shootings, fascinated by Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold. I fantasized about doing the same thing, wrote pages and pages about it in my journal. I could visualize it when they threw garbage at me and mood, pulling out a gun and taking them off one by one. I listened to morbid songs about suicide over and over again. It was all I could think about. These thoughts comforted me. And I told myself I would never, ever follow through, but they disturbed me, and I was terrified that one day I would snap and lose it. Amazingly, I pulled off my highest grades ever that semester. The kid who was being bullied is not always the kid who's failing the class. I tried to drop out, but my mother wouldn't let me, so I ended up back at my first high school, where I skipped as much as I could. My teachers would pull me aside after class, frustrated because they didn't understand. They could see so much potential when I showed up for class, but I didn't do the assignments. When I spoke out in law class in favor of gay rights and decriminalizing marijuana, the rumors spread for the 100th time that I was gay, like it was the worst thing in the world. And this time they said I was running a grow-up out of my basement too. I gave up. I spent more of my time at school in the bathroom cutting and burning myself than I did in class. My attendance was so poor that the vice principal tried to kick me out. Eventually, I did finish high school, but those memories are very much a part of who I am today. Before I read Jodee's book, I had no idea how to process all of it. I was still desperate to fit in, and I spent a summer trying to do that, no matter the cost. I had a hard time starting college because every time someone talked to me, I automatically assumed that they were going to mock me. I felt like I should be over it, like most people would think it was no big deal. I felt like it was my fault, like I should have done more to stop it, and I was still angry. As much as I was angry with the kids who had tormented me, I was angrier with the adults who had failed to stop it. The teacher who straight out told me that it was my fault, that I should be more outgoing. The counselor I was sent to see in grade 5 who simply gave me a book on how to make friends. The woman who told me when her daughter was picking on me that I should stop crying, get over it, I should be used to it by now. The principal who asked me in front of the bullies, how I wanted them to be punished. The art teacher who commented only on the lack of color in my suicide-themed final project. And the vice principal who tried to kick me out of school without asking me why I was missing my classes. Please don't be any of these adults in the life of a bullied child. Be the adults who let me stay inside at recess. Be the adults who encouraged me in my interests away from my classmates. Be the adults who paid enough attention to know when I was struggling without me having to tell them. Don't punish the bullies, please. It just makes it worse for the bullied child. Instead, help them to see why their behavior needs to change without involving the victimized child. And if you don't have that kind of influence over the bully, be a safe haven for their victim. Don't tell them it's their fault. Don't tell them just suck it up, I'll get over it. Don't tell them that if they would just change this, they would have friends. Encourage them to be themselves. But more importantly, be aware of these kids. A lot of the time, I didn't tell anyone what was going on, not because I was afraid of retaliation, but because I was embarrassed. Help them see it's not their fault. Help them get over that embarrassment. Be the person that gives that kid hope. And finally, to those of you who have been bullied, know this. It's not your fault, and it is a big deal. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Take the time to read Jodee's books. They have helped me immensely in moving on. Thank you so much, Jodee, for all the work you do, your books, and these presentations. And thank you for coming here today. The impact you make is immeasurable. Thank you to Marco Felvis for working so hard to make this event happen. And thank you also to the School of Human Services for realizing the importance of bringing speakers like Jodee to the college. We appreciate being given the opportunity to learn in so many ways, in class, placements, and events like this. These things spark passion in our work, and hopefully someday, because of it, we can be as influential as Jodee is today. Thank you.